people filled in the front end up here. What I'm going to be talking about today is something that took us 12 years to implement. So as I go through it, don't think that we did these things overnight. But we'll start out by, hey, we're the wastewater providers.
There it goes.
Okay. Yeah. So, we're the wastewater providers for the western Sun County area. We have a number of ski areas and all that type of stuff that went into our service area. And then we have a lot of unincorporated areas all throughout the Park City and Snuggle Basin area. But what I'd like to do today is talk about asset management. And before I get into some of the details, I want to tell you about some experiences that I've had that have kind of driven me to where we are today. I was a general manager of a wastewater utility in the southern United States that had a collection system that was installed in 1888. And we didn't do our first bit of maintenance on that until 1983. So it was almost 100 years. So I got to learn firsthand what it's like to maintain a system that was virtually, just completely falling apart. We were having stoppages almost every day. We were having line failures every 3 days. And we worked at that for 20 years before we actually started to see light at the end of the tunnel. And when I took a job at Snyderville, I said, I'm never going to let that type of situation happen at that district. So that just gives you a little background of what my experiences are, and I kind of learned the hard way. The second thing is I served on a national panel and got to see a lot of asset management, or what you might just say, management of assets in different countries back in the 1990s. So that was something that kind of drove me to do what we're doing at Snyderville. But back in about 2002, we were asking ourselves, are our user rates adequate to pay for maintenance of the system, including replacement, and are we avoiding deferred maintenance? Do our customers know what our needs are? And the answer to those questions are basically no, no, and no. And we found out very quickly that in order to raise rates, you have to convince your ratepayers that you really need the money, and to able to convince them that you need the money, you need to have good data. So that's part of why we implemented an asset management plan back in 2003. So last 12, 14 years, we've been implementing this plan. And again, I want to stress, we took this one step at a time. I'm going to stand up here for a few minutes and kind of rip through it, but it took us many, many years to implement all this. I want to just comment back on some information that I had some experience with back in the 1990s, and that is where asset management really got started. A lady by the name of Dr. Penny Burns was hired by the Southern Water Authority in Australia. At that time, Australia and New Zealand were experiencing huge disruptions in their system because of backups, failures, and all. And the government stepped in and said, you know what, guys, if you're not going to do what you need to do, we're going to force you to do the right thing. And that's exactly what the government did. As a result of that, they hired Dr. Burns to write what was, at the time, the first total asset management manual for New Zealand, and that became the way of the law. So in Australia and New Zealand, asset management, as we call it, is mandated by law, and while we have some requirements by the state here, and Tim's going to talk about that here in a minute, in Australia and New Zealand, it's much more detailed, and it's something that we all need to think about. One of the things that I want to point out to you is that as a result of Dr. Burns' work, it was the start of what we call the International Infrastructure Maintenance or Management Manual. You may not know that such a manual even exists, but it is becoming the manual to manage infrastructure, water and sewer in particular, in the entire world. And the most recent edition in 2015 has great contributions from the U.S. and other places, and it's a great medium. I highly recommend using it as a resource. So let's get into asset management the way we've done it. And the assets that we're talking about in our case are all sewer-based. We have, almost 300 miles of sewer lines, 7,000 manholes, pump stations, a couple treatment plants. And what we talk to our customers about is that, hey, customer, you've invested, if we were to replace it today, over $400 million, and we want to maintain these systems for you, and you have to recognize it's going to cost money, but we're going to show you where we need the money to pay for all this. So within our asset management plan, we have some information, a lot of the basic stuff contained in the executive summary, and we point out to our customers that, hey, we're here to protect your health and protect the environment, and that, you've made a big investment. Specifics, the specific purposes of the plan are real simple. We want to responsibly manage the assets. We want to follow what we're directed to do by our Board of Trustees. We want to follow the state requirements. We want to follow the GASB accounting standards. We want to identify renewal and maintenance needs, and I'll talk a little bit about how we use the term renewal. And we want to manage risk, and we just want to follow good practices, plain and simple. And we want to make sure that we inform our customers of our needs. And the last bit there probably should be up top, because if you don't inform your customers of what the needs are, you're not going to get the money to do what you need to do. So let's get into the actual elements of an asset management plan and the way we do it. So we start out with a strategy. It's very simple. What do you want to do? In our case, we want to provide the best service at the cheapest cost. We want to establish a level of service. And this is something that you need to sit down with your governing bodies and say, how high of a service do you want us to provide? Do you want us to provide a service that involves no stoppages, no breakdowns, et cetera, and are you willing to pay for that? Or do you want us to provide a slightly lower level of service and you pay for that? So that's something that is direction from your governing body to you as to, what is your goal? Demand forecast is real simple. We are in a growing community. We want to know what we're going to have to do in the future in the way of providing service. How much development is going to take place. Pretty straightforward. Asset management system, that's the heart and soul of what I'll be talking about today, and that involves the inventory of your assets. Where are your manholes? Where are your sewer lines? What size are they? All those kind of things, the condition, talk about O&M replacement, and then finding money to do all that, and ultimately lifecycle costs. I can tell you that almost all of the decisions that we make are for the long term. If it costs us a little bit more money now, but it'll save us money later on, that's the approach that we take. Sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow because it takes, sometimes a chunk of money now, but when we work with our governing board, and more importantly, when we deal with our customers, if we tell our customers, hey, if you change oil in this engine over here, this engine's going to last a long time. But if you don't give us the money to change oil, and you blow an engine, it's going to cost you a lot more in the long run. So let's go through these elements and go through one by one. Our strategy is real simple. We want to provide high quality service and protect the folks that we're serving and protect the environment. That's element number one. Element number two is level of service. We sat down with our Board of Trustees and established what level of service they wanted us to provide. So in this case, we're talking about condition here, the very top one, and I'll get into more of the condition. Capacity, they don't want any overflows, meaning the pipes are too small. They don't want us to be in that situation. Blockages or stoppages or backups, whatever you want to call them, they said, you know what? If you can have less than one backup per 100 miles, you'll meet the levels of service that we're setting. We want all of our new pipes to be in compliance with our design standards, meaning when a developer comes in and builds a pipe, they have to design them and install them according to the district's standards. Pretty straightforward. They want us to be 99.5% compliance with our discharge requirements. because everything I'm talking about here is collection and treatment. They want us to be able to respond within 4 hours if we have a problem. That's pretty easy to do. Demand, again, this gets back to the capacity. They want us to have capacity available at the treatment facilities to serve new growth. Again, pretty straightforward. And every year we take a customer survey. We send a survey out to our customer. We have about a dozen questions, and we ask them to rate us and then to give us an overall rating overall. And they ask us to shoot for a customer rating of greater than 85%. So the second element is really, or third element is really demand forecast. And all we did is we took a look at how the growth is taking place. This is on the left-hand vertical column is just basically, think of it as houses and time on the bottom. And this sloping curve here is our historical growth curve. And, you know, we know that our capacity is this line right here, but as we approach this, and we're right here right now, we're at a capacity at the treatment facilities. We have 2 of those. So we're currently tearing down and rebuilding one of our facilities. We're doubling its capacity, again, to meet the demand. We projected what this curve will look like into the future by looking at all the vacant property and how is it zoned, and how many homes could potentially be built on each of those vacant parcels. And we just put it in a little formula and drew this curve and said, you know, this is our best projection. We adjust that curve every year, so we kind of keep a handle on it. But by looking at what your vacant property is zoned, gives you some idea of what you might be faced with in the way of providing service in the future. When it comes to looking at our pipes and knowing if our pipe can handle a new development, we use some software packages called InfoSewer. There's all kinds of packages out there you could use, but our engineering department will look at a developer's needs, what they want to do, what they want to connect, and we'll make sure we have the capacity in all the sewer pipes. So let's get to the heart and soul of an asset management plan, the actual nuts and bolts and manholes and pump stations. What do you have in the way of inventory? You know, where is it? How deep is it? How old is it? And then we went out and we took a survey grade instrument. We shot the elevations of all of our inverts as well as the manhole covers, the top side. And all that information went into our InfoSewer software program so that we could instantly, just at the tabletop, get some idea as to what the capacity of the system is. Because a lot of our lines are pretty old and the as-builts are not all that great, and they're not necessarily built the way that they were supposed to be built. So what do you have? What condition are they in? One of the real important parts, and Brent talked about this morning, is inspecting your system. You know, what conditions are they in? At Snyderville, we use what's given as the best way to do this through the International Infrastructure Management Manual, and that is we give each asset, meaning a line segment, a pump station, or a manhole, a total asset rating. And it's much like Brent talked about, and again, you can keep this as simple as possible or get as complicated as you want, but to do it real simple is not that difficult. So our Board of Trustees said, you know, we want all the assets to have a total asset rating of basically 3.5 or above. If you got a 4 or 5, then you need to do something about it. And we take a look at total asset rating, or what we call TAR, meaning what condition it's in and how critical is it. You know, if you have a pump station that has 1 pump, you know, it's going to be a higher criticality than if you got a pump station with, say 2 pumps. Now, this is just a snapshot of one of our inspection sheets that we use, so that if you have, this is for a line segment, it's a little more involved in what Brett had, but it's basically the same thing. If you have a defective joint, we give it a score of 1 through 5. You got holes, 1 through 5. You know, if you got infiltration, 1 through 5, roots, grease, and then we weight each of those scores, and you come up with a total rating. Just a little more involved in what Brent showed you this morning, but the principle is exactly the same thing. Again, you can make this as simple as complicated as you want. When you put all that in a scattergram, we come up with our priority ones. That's the area that we put our emphasis on first. Again, exactly what Brent talked about this morning. It's just a little different way of doing it. So we know, what we have, we know the condition, and now we talked about operation and maintenance. As you go through an asset management plan, you'll find very quickly that a lot of your work moves from the unplanned or reactive mode to being proactive. It'll happen automatically. You don't have to worry about that too much just because you're now doing a better job of taking care of what you need to take care of. Asset renewal and replacement. We use the term renewal because it actually comes out of the International Management Manual. But what it really means is that you're adding service potential to an asset. So that if you have a pump that's getting worn out and you rebuild it and now it has another 5 years of life, we call that renewing an asset. And we'll get into that here in just a moment when we talk about depreciating assets and stuff that us managers have to deal with. But the object is to determine the best mix of replacement or repair. Talk a little bit about financial reporting. Historically, when districts or cities or whatever do annual audits, typically you show some depreciation on the books for your various assets. GASB 34 is a governmental accounting standard board requirement that we have to follow, and it gives you an option to not defer, not to depreciate assets. It lets you use what we call the modified approach. I'll get into that a little bit because it really enables you to do some things financially, which all kind of get down to the point of dealing with your customer. But number one, if you want to follow the modified approach, you have to use an asset management system, much like the state is requiring in its simplest forms, and you must complete inspection of your assets every 3 years. Now, you can do this on a statistical approach, meaning you don't have to look at every manhole, every line. You can just use a statistical sample, and that's good enough for this requirement. The other thing you have to do is that you have to document to your board of trustees that you're maintaining the system, and that you must have 3 years of these inspections, and you have to show that for that 3-year period of time, or this 3-year inspections, they have to be up to the level of service that's established by your board of trustees or your councils. So why would you want to use a modified approach? Well, first of all, the old method, or the method that's been around for others, straight line depreciation, you just show that, hey, this thing's getting old and it's getting worn out. On the modified approach, you actually take depreciation off your books. And this will get the attention of a lot of your accountants because you're taking depreciation off. But what you're now doing is you're showing the actual value of your assets, because as you maintain them to this level of service established by the board or your council, the value that is shown in your accounting books is actually the value of the system. And when you go to issue bonds to build a big project, the rating agencies really like to see this. Just let you know that we put all this in a financial model. This is a big Excel spreadsheet, and we can show you, or we can tell our customers what our anticipated rates are for the next 10 years out. It's kind of all calculated for us at a time. So life cycle costs, the last part of this is, again, it's really just the long term. What does it cost you to acquire that asset? What does it cost you to maintain it? What does it cost you to get rid of it? And what is that total cost collectively? And when we make decisions, we go for the long term. And again, we've told our customers that we're going to make decisions that'll save you money in the long term. Every year, we provide a report to our board of trustees. This is what this last year's report looked like. So the green column, that's the level of service established by our board of trustees. The blue column is how we did in 2015. I don't know if you can see this or not, but we got thousands and thousands of manholes and line segments, but we had 37 assets that fell below the level of service that our board of trustees had set. Fine, that's what those are the things we're budgeted for. Capacity, we didn't have any overflows. We had one blockage, and that's because a fiber optics guy, over to the side of our line, and the third-party situation wasn't anything we did responsible for. Otherwise, we had no stoppages in our system last year. We had 100% compliance with our design standards. We had 100% compliance with our discharge requirements. We got excess capacity. We had one minor SSO. That's the same one that fed back to the optical cable guy doing directional boring to the side of one of our lines. And our customer satisfaction was feedback this year about 98%. So when it comes to asset management, it just talks about maintaining your system, and you have to have a strategy. What's your goal? What are you trying to do? Level of service. What level of service are you shooting for? You need to be prepared to handle growth if you have that taking place in your area. On the asset management system, you have to know what you have, what condition it's in. You need to know, are you going to renew it or replace it, budget accordingly, and then you give an annual report to the Board of Trustees if you use a modified approach. Now, again, I can't stress enough that this is for the long term. And I say long term, I'm talking about 20, 30 years. So, again, we make decisions for the long term. And in the long run, we're trying to save our customers money, and we keep reminding our customers of that. When we have rate increases, we remind our customers of that. But by doing it this way, you can defer rate increases that you might have to have otherwise because you're doing reactive work instead of proactive work. And all this gets down to being able to translate into rates that are real important. So after 12, 14 years of a lot of really hard work, this is what our results look like at the end of 2015. We're operating 2 tertiary wastewater facilities. We implemented phosphorus removal at our East Canyon facility back in 2003. Our phosphorus limit is 0.1. We have no deferred maintenance. We have not had any stoppages other than third-party stoppages the last couple of years. We have no system failures. We have no debt to our current customers. We reduced our staff by 11%, and our average bill is $40 a month. And that's what we call the actual cost of service to be able to do this. $40 a month, a good part of that goes to the 2 tertiary facilities because they are rather expensive to build and operate. But when you really get down to what it takes to maintain a system, again, with 2 tertiary facilities, about $40 a month is what it costs for us. And again, we're not a huge district. We have 40 employees, and at one time we had 45 employees, but we were able to reduce down because honestly we don't have many things. We don't have many emergency repairs to make and those type of things. So that's a quick overview of asset management. If you get involved in asset management, and again, it's kind of Brett said, or using the state's deal, start out small, and don't try to tackle all this at one time. I've seen a couple entities come to us and they said, "Hey, would you help us out walk through implementing one of these systems?" And we said, "Sure, we'd be happy to, and I'd be happy to help any of you." But you have to take it a step at a time. One of the very first steps after you set your strategy is your inventory. Where are your manholes? It may take you 2 or 3 years, so make sure you know where all your manholes are, to map them, to take GPS or readings of them, or however you do it. Again, that's okay. Take the time to do that first step right. Do not rush it. I can think of a very large entity here in Utah that rushed it, and the whole thing collapsed on them because they didn't build a good foundation. Know what you have in the way of inventory. Then start, determine what the condition of the assets are. Take your time. And again, start out as sophisticated as you want. You keep it real simple. Brett laid out some simple ways to get started. The trust offers great assistance there. The key is, our job is to provide service to our customers at the lowest possible cost and provide, again, the best service. That's not always easy to do, but if you implement these systems, it trains down the rates, and the key is you go to your governing bodies and you go to your customers and you say, hey, you know, you want to pay $2 now or you want to pay, you know, $10 later? And most customers, if they think about it, they'd rather change the oil in the engine than pay for a blown engine. And then that's the real key here. Questions? Yes, sir.
So your average monthly bill is $20. Well, how many connections is that?
About 12,000.
12,000. You're able to handle 40 employees with those types of people?
Yes. And the key is we don't spend any significant money on emergency repairs, reactive. We're pretty much all proactive. And we use technology at our plants. We do SCADA systems, our pump stations are all on SCADA. And Scott, raise your hand right. If you want to talk to the guy in the field for our collection system that has implemented the asset management plan, you talk to Scott here, you know, throughout the day, and he can give you the particulars. He can tell you all the good, bad, and the ugly, and what we've gone through to get where we are. But he's the guy that's in the middle of all of this collection standpoint. Other questions? Yep. Jason?
Just a point from the trust angle, this doesn't go into nearly the detail you're talking about, but we will be doing our property appraisals coming out, so you will have that side of your assets depending on the detail that you can handle all of that. Our appraisals will starting right away, right soon. Everybody will have appraisal all of your property. So we've done the detail and listing the equipment on your property schedule. That could be starting now.
When it comes to the International Infrastructure Management Manual, it's printed in either Australia or New Zealand. I don't know where, one of those countries. But if you're ever by the Snydeville area and you want to take a look at the 2015 edition, we have that. Glad to share it with you. But it really is a great manual, especially with the input from the United States this year. It starts out very basic, walks you through how to get started with asset management. And again, I can't stress enough, take one step at a time and build a good foundation and then move on up into the more sophisticated parts of the asset management process. Any other questions?